shit the bed with my peahen because you're well versed in the land of peacocks.
All good. Okay. It's funny because in England they're a lot more popular.
Peacocks?
Yeah. So like you could just be, I don't know, a lot of the big like manor halls where they obviously are not owned by like lords and ladies and stuff anymore, and they've opened them to the public and they make them museums and this sort of stuff. Like if you have like a farm or a big piece of land like that, usually there's peacocks on it.
I want to have that peacock money.
Yeah, and you can hear them all the time because they're very loud.
Are they?
Yeah, I'm not going to attempt to make the noise that they make. You can Google it if you want, but they have a very distinct call, and it's very loud.
Well then.
Yeah, so just fun facts.
This is in regards to our fact from last week where I was just mind blown that a female peacock is a peahen, and Charlotte was like, duh.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know.
I think I've always known that, but I don't know. I was and still am a weird little kid, so.
Yeah, but I always feel like with the bird facts.
That's true. You are the bird woman.
But apparently not.
No, that was just one of the few.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
All right.
Let's
do it.
I know. I think we're procrastinating jumping into this one, but.
Oh, Peter. We just said off mic that we have covered so many heinous people in such a short amount of time. We've never done that before.
No, hopefully, I don't think we'll be taking a break as such, but we're going to sort of pivot in the genre. We've been covering a lot of heinous British people, which is purely coincidental, I promise. Yeah. It's just worked out that way. So we're not going to give you a break after this series for sure.
No, we're just going to keep the kill count to like under 5. Like count them on one hand.
Yeah, something a bit different.
Yeah, exactly.
Because while I know you guys love the serial killers in the way that you can love the serial killers.
And we do too.
We do too. There's no judgment here. You know what we're saying. Don't take us out of context. Yeah, we're going to pivot and cover something a little different in the future.
Yes. Still terrible, though.
Still terrible. Always grim. Always grim. Hello, everyone. I'm Charlotte.
And I'm Dina. Welcome to the Grim Curriculum.
As you might have guessed, we are on part 2 of our Yorkshire Ripper series.
Last week, we introduced you to Peter Sutcliffe, an unsuspecting and overly average man who would go on to become one of the most notorious serial killers in British history.
Today, we are going to be covering his continuation into serial murder and see how his actions impacted society and especially young women.
Despite the fact that his victim count would enter the double digits, he would not be caught for years. When he finally was, it was almost sheer coincidence.
And it had very little to do with the fact that the police would engage in the most expensive manhunt of its kind.
Like we said last week, this case is a great example of how sometimes the reason these people can get away with this for so long has nothing to do with them being smart, but with sheer incompetence on the part of investigators.
You guys probably think that we're being hard on the West Yorkshire police throughout this series.
It's well-deserved.
I think it's well-deserved.
Now, you told me a story.
Yes.
And I would love for you to share it.
Oh, so when I was back in the UK visiting, me and my grandparents were talking about the Yorkshire Ripper. And to give you guys just a brief idea of the sort of bumblingness of the West Yorkshire police at that time, my grandpa told us a story. And with his first wife, before he met my grandma, they were in their little house one night, and his first wife, she had gone to bed already, and he had stayed up for a little bit with the dog. And he was a big German Shepherd called Benson. And I've seen pictures. Fantastic dog. And as it's getting darker, and it's a little later into the evening, they had put out the garbage bins in front of the house for the garbage men to come along. And my granddad realizes as he's sitting in the dark room, there's some guys coming up and they're climbing on top of the garbage cans with the mind to sort of open the top latch window and come in. So my grandpa runs upstairs real quiet, wakes up his wife and is like, shh, be quiet. I think we're being burgled right now. And she's like, oh my God. And he's like, shut up. And so he goes down with the dog. And so their front window, it's sort of 2 windows. One opens sort of outwards, if that makes sense. And then they have sort of a little one up at the top. And these guys were going to come through. And so my grandpa, being in the dark room, he could see them, but they couldn't see him. And so he was going to wait until they had come through the little window latch enough, and then he was going to grab him and pull him in with him and the dog in a kind of I'm not in here with you, you're in here with me kind of
I love it.
situation. But as he went to do this, there was kind of a kerfuffle, and the guy fell back outside. So my grandpa, in his sort of pajama top and boxer shorts, ran out of the house and down the street after these two little burglars or whatever. And he's like, they were probably 17, 18, 19, like kids,
Mhm.
basically. And so he had yelled back, or maybe his wife, Anne, at the time, had called the police. But by that time, more people were out on the street because they had sort of hit several houses. So my grandpa's running after them in his pajamas down the street, and he kind of loses them, but he sees police lights and hears the sirens coming, and he's like, perfect, the police are on their way. I can point him in the right direction. So the police car pulls up, and they're like, get your hands on the side of the vehicle. And he's like, no, 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 like and they're like, shut up, get your hands on the side of the vehicle. And he's like, no, I'm trying to tell you. And they're like, keep your mouth shut, like hands on the side of the vehicle. And so he's like, okay, fine, fine. So they drag him in the back of the vehicle, and they were very proud of themselves.
Mhm.
They had thought that they had caught these burglars, or at least one of them, and they're talking in the front of the car while my grandpa's in the back in his pajamas, in his lilac colored pajamas, and they're like real like chuffed with
We
themselves,
did it.
because at the time, and we'll get into it, the West Yorkshire police, who is kind of the rural police, and the Leeds police, who would have been the city police,
Mhm.
didn't like to get along with each other and didn't want to be team members. And so for these little West Yorkshire police, they're like, yeah, we got him, got one over on the Leeds police. And my grandpa's like, okay, whatever. So they drive back to their house. Everyone's out on the street, and I can just picture all the women like in their curlers and
Yep.
everything, because it's the 70s. And Anne, his wife, comes up and is like, oh, what are you doing? And the police are like, we've got him. And my grandpa's wife was like, that's my husband. And they were like, no, 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 we got him. And she's like, I'm telling you, that's my husband. And they were like, well, you never told us. And he's like, well, I was trying to tell you, but you told me to shut up and keep my hands on the
Mhm.
vehicle. And he's like, do you honestly think I was robbing places dressed in a lilac pajama top and my boxers
Yeah.
in my bare feet
Mhm.
running down the street? Do you think? And they were like, oh, well, So he's like, okay, let me go, put my pants on. And then I'll come with you and I'll tell you the direction they went. So they kind of came up. He gets in the back again and whatever, going along. And my grandpa says they went up there towards these woods. And he's like, it was very thick and dense, and it would be easy for them to kind of disappear into the woods. And then in the other direction was kind of this very sketchy housing estate that was called, I think, the Gipton Housing Estate. And if you're from the area and during that time, you know that it was a rough place to be. Like,
Gipton was rough.
Gipton
Who
was
would have
rough,
thought?
yeah. And so the police were like, no, no, they for sure would have gone to Gipton. And my granddad's like, I'm telling you, I saw them ran towards the forest. So they turn to go towards Gipton, and they're driving around and nothing's happening. They get a call over the radio. Yeah, we got him. They were in the woods.
Oh my gosh. West Yorkshire Police, ladies and gentlemen.
Not saying all of them. And
No,
obviously, it's been a
no.
long time. But that was not the only example of some bumbling tomfoolery my grandpa had for me at the time.
And I think that's just such an important story to tell because it really paints a picture of what we're gonna be dealing with today.
Very, very much so. And like I said, it was a big part that the rural police and the city police didn't like to cooperate and actually communicate with
Mhm.
one another.
And we see that everywhere. We see that in the States all the time, or we did before especially.
Or just different branches of law enforcement. State troopers don't want to talk to the FBI,
Yep.
who don't want to talk to metropolitan police, who don't, blah, 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 blah. Or the sheriff has ulterior motives because he just wants to see the case finished. Or,
Mhm.
there's many examples we could go on.
Speaking of the police, in March of 1976, they received the first in a series of letters from someone claiming to be the Yorkshire Ripper. The man responsible for sending them would ultimately derail the entire investigation in a huge way, but we will get to more of that later. And I did some research on this guy.
Mm.
Crazy.
He is a wild one in and of
Mhm.
himself. Before we do get into all of that, it is unfortunately time to get back into what Peter Sutcliffe, the real Yorkshire Ripper, was up to. At around 4 a.m. on May 9th, 1976, he spotted 20-year-old Marcella Claxton walking home from a party she had just attended with some friends. Like many of his other victims, she too had links to the sex work industry.
Peter pulled up alongside of her. She hadn't been working that night, but asked him for a ride. Instead of driving her home, he took her to Soldiers Field, where he offered her £5 in exchange for sex. She declined his offer. It is likely, though, that he then asked her to just sit and chat with him.
They were both getting out of the car when she heard a thud on the ground. Assuming Peter had dropped something, she asked what it was. He just told her that it was his wallet. Marcella went behind a nearby tree to relieve herself, and the next thing she knew, Peter was hitting her over the head with a hammer.
Thankfully, she was still alive and was able to get a glimpse of her attacker. She noted in her mind that he had black hair with a dark beard. Peter watched her as she bled on the ground and began to masturbate. When he was done, he went to his car to clean himself up. Peter then placed the £5 in her hand and warned her not to tell the police. He then left.
Marcella managed to make it to a nearby telephone booth where she called for an ambulance. While she was waiting for them to arrive, she saw Peter drive by her multiple times.
Terrifying.
Being in a phone booth,
Mm-hmm.
praying for help to come while the person that just did that to you drives back and forth.
Yeah.
Ugh. Jesus.
Her injuries would result in her needing 52 stitches.
Holy cow.
The trauma of everything also led her to have a crippling fear of men, along with depression and dizzy spells.
By now, word was spreading rapidly through the community, particularly among sex workers. It was very clear that someone out there was hunting women. In an attempt to protect themselves, they began traveling in groups and would no longer get into a car without someone taking note of who they were with, along with a license plate number.
Like we mentioned before, the attitude of most of the public in regards to sex workers was pretty heartless. At this point, the attacks of Anna and Olive, who we mentioned last week, were not linked to the murders. Therefore, the majority of the public believed that whoever this person was, they were safe as long as they were not among that population.
And it's a case where we've heard it before, where they sort of create this wrong victimology.
Mhm.
Oh, he attacks sex workers. Oh, well, I'm not a sex worker, so I'll be
Yeah.
fine. It wasn't true. He was attacking any woman that just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
And the thing to remember is you're going to hear this a lot today. She got in the car with him. She got in the car with him.
Yeah.
People used to hitchhike. They used to accept rides from
It
strangers.
wasn't a problem.
It was normal because back then, serial killer wasn't necessarily something that was a word that everyone knew. And so the idea of, oh, I'm just walking home from the bar, I'm not a sex worker. This guy
Yeah.
who seems fine is offering me a ride. Sure.
It's just 5 minutes. It's only half a mile. It's
Exactly.
going to be fine. Disgustingly enough, there were many people out there who actually thought that the murder victims deserved what happened to them because of their high risk lifestyle.
Again, quote unquote, the less dead.
It makes me so sad. And the amount of times where things go unnoticed isn't the right word because someone's noticing.
Yeah.
But unnoticed by the right people or
Yes.
ignored by the right people. It makes me so mad. In October of that same year, Peter came home to his wife and told her that he had finally found a job as a driver and that he would be working between Shipley and Bradford. It would appear that his new job kept him quite busy because he did not attack again for another 5 months.
On February 5th, he found his next victim, Irene Richardson. Her life up until that point had been nothing short of tragic. She was only 28 years old and had been unable to care for her children, resulting in them being placed in foster homes. At the time of her death, she was living in a rooming house.
Due to a lack of money and nowhere safe to live, she became dependent on sex work as a way to survive. That night, she was on Cowper Street in Chapeltown. She had told her roommates that she was going to Tiffany's, a pub/disco, to let off some steam and maybe to find a client. Unfortunately, that person turned out to be Peter Sutcliffe.
He beat her with a hammer so hard that it caused a piece of her skull to pierce through her brain. He also stabbed her in the throat, neck, and stomach. The wounds to her stomach were so severe that it caused her organs to spill out of her body.
When her body was discovered, investigators saw that there may have been evidence of sexual assault. There was semen present in her body, but they were unsure if it had come from her attacker or from a client that she had taken earlier in the evening.
Peter had also removed her boots and placed them neatly beside her. Along with that, he also left behind a series of tire marks. This concluded that the attacker was driving a medium sized car or a van.
While this might seem like a step in the right direction, it really turned out not to be. They were able to find the manufacturer of the tires and saw that a total of 26 different vehicle models could have been outfitted with them. The total number of vehicles in the area with similar tires was probably over 100,000. This led them no closer to their suspect.
Peter would strike again on April 23rd, 1977. That night, he found 32-year-old Patricia Atkinson, or Tina as she preferred to be called. Tina, like many of the other victims, had found work in the sex trade industry. She was recently divorced and had 3 daughters to support. She worked from her home and she felt safe because she believed the Yorkshire Ripper only found his victims outside, which up until now was true.
That night, she left her home to visit a local pub. She was well known in the area and had a reputation for being a partier and a big drinker. At around 11 p.m., several women who knew her saw her walking towards Church Street. It was sometime around then that Peter found her. Tina was intoxicated, and she didn't think much of the small, unassuming man. She accepted his proposition for sex in exchange for money.
The two got into his car and headed to her home. As they entered the front door, Peter struck Tina in the head. She was hit with a hammer 3 more times before her body even hit the ground.
As he stood there watching her bleed, he took off his coat and picked her up. Peter then took her to the bedroom and threw her onto the bed. He then removed her clothing. Tina was then stabbed a total of 6 times, and when Peter was done, he left.
What he didn't realize was that he had left a boot print on her bedsheet.
This is now the second time he's left a boot print, and it does come around.
It does, but that's also what makes it so infuriating, is he's leaving evidence
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. He's not being particularly clean or
No.
really even attempting to hide himself at all. You know, he's not covering his head, he's not wearing gloves, he's not doing any of this. He's just attacking people with hammers and screwdrivers.
And the thing is, we just mentioned Tiffany's pub.
Yes.
That's where he found a huge chunk of his victims.
Yeah. And nothing really changed.
No.
In the meantime, Peter's married life seemed to be going relatively well. Sonia was looking forward to getting a teaching job that September, and the two continued to plan their life together. They decided that they were finally financially secure enough to purchase their first house at number 6 Garden Lane.
Little did she know was that the same night that they went to go look at the house, Peter would go out to the pub to find his next victim.
Jayne MacDonald was only 16 years old. She had been working at a supermarket for a few months and had gotten to know her coworkers relatively well. She was not one to socialize with them outside of work, but that evening they invited her out and she said yes.
Jane planned to catch the bus home, but when she saw it leave without her, she decided she would walk. A young man named Mark Jones joined her. Mark had told her that her sister would give her a ride home. Unfortunately, when they arrived at his house, she wasn't there, so he offered to walk her part way. The two made plans to meet the following week and said their goodbyes.
Peter Sutcliffe found her walking near a playground. Her autopsy would later reveal that she had been hit in the head 3 times, and along with that, she had several deep stab wounds, and these would be the ones that ultimately led to her death. A broken bottle was also found embedded in her chest.
Her body was discovered the following morning by 2 children.
Literally, they were walking to school.
Yep, like right by a playground.
When news of this murder broke out, it was clear that the media, along with the public, had a very different view of this victim. She was the first to be referred to as a, quote, innocent, and suddenly justice was being demanded.
And they weren't the only ones who felt that way. Even Peter felt that this murder was different. In his confession, he would say,
I left her lying in the corner. I cannot remember whether she was lying face up or face down. I walked back down the same street to where I had parked my car. I don't think I had any blood on me following this one. I cannot remember what I did with the knife. I must have taken it home with me and washed it. I feel I may have left it in the Corsair when I scrapped it. When I saw in the papers that MacDonald was so young and not a prostitute, I felt like someone inhuman and realized that it was a devil driving me against my will and that I was a beast.
You know what's interesting to me?
Yeah.
So he says he feels like he's the devil, but in his confessions later, he would say that God told him to kill these women.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
the difference in how he reacted to this murder and how the public reacted, because suddenly they're innocent.
It's this very twisted sense of right and wrong,
Mhm,
and that, oh, it's God telling me to do it when they're prostitutes,
mhm.
when they're sex workers. But when I accidentally, quote unquote, killed an innocent, oh, then suddenly it was the devil.
Yeah,
Like, no, you fucked up in your own weird moral
yeah,
twisted sense. You didn't feel bad about the others. You only feel bad now because she doesn't fit this demographic that you thought she might have.
yeah, and suddenly you feel inhuman?
Yeah, fuck you, dude.
It's ridiculous.
Absolutely.
The police were also pressed heavily for information about the attack. Prior to this, many people seemed to want to know about the gory details of the victims. But with Jayne, it was different. Now it seemed that any woman could be in danger and they wanted the man responsible caught. So the other murders, they want to know, how was she killed? What
Yeah.
happened? How terrible was it? How gross was it?
Yeah.
And with Jayne, they're like, we need to catch this
Yeah.
guy.
Have some respect. How could you talk about her like that?
Yeah.
Wild this awful double standard
Mhm.
is, just because you're deemed, I don't know, less deserving of dignity or, whatever. They're human beings
Yeah.
regardless. Investigators visited a total of 679 homes and interviewed anyone who could have some information in the death of Jayne MacDonald. A total of 4,000 statements were taken. Unlike before, people were more than willing to share everything they could in order to help catch the man responsible. Despite this, they were still nowhere close to catching Peter Sutcliffe, and it wouldn't take long before he killed again.
Less than a month later, Peter attacked 43-year-old Maureen Long in Bradford. He saw her waiting for a taxi and offered her a ride home, and she accepted.
Peter took Maureen to a quiet area and hit her in the back of the head. He stabbed her in the stomach and back, but stopped when he heard a dog barking nearby. He saw Maureen bleeding and left her to die. His car was seen by a night watchman around 3:30 a.m.
Two women found her the following morning. Miraculously, Maureen had made it through the night. Later reports would say that the hospital workers were shocked that she had even survived such a brutal attack.
I mean, it's pretty miraculous
It
that
is.
anybody did after taking cracks on the head with a
Mhm.
hammer. But as much as he did uh, complete the deed with a lot of his victims,
Mhm.
there were quite a few survivors.
Oh, absolutely.
Not that their lives weren't irreparably damaged
Mhm.
by this, but a few did survive. Like we said, Peter had fully expected Maureen to die, so he wasn't too worried that she would be able to get a pretty good look at him. She had told investigators that her attacker was under 6 feet tall, approximately 35 years, and had dark hair. She was interviewed before her surgery, but could not remember much after.
Maureen, like the other survivors, suffered long after her attack was over. In 1978, she appeared in court for charges of theft. She explained to them that she stole because she had no money and she was waiting for social services to offer her compensation for the attacks because she obviously couldn't work.
She would later be awarded a small amount of money, but would give interviews to the press about her attack in order to make ends meet. So not only has she been through this horrific time that's basically ruined her
Mhm.
life, not that it was fantastic before, but it's certainly not better now, and she's barely getting by
Mhm.
because she can't work. She has no means to. She's waiting for whatever kind of compensation is coming that isn't
Mhm.
coming. This poor woman.
And then the one of the only ways she can support herself is either to do sex work again, in which case this could happen again,
Yes.
or to give interviews about the worst thing that's ever happened to her in her life.
Like between a rock and a hard
Yeah.
place.
While she was recovering in the hospital, investigators set up interview rooms at Tiffany's where two of the victims had been on the night of their attacks. They interviewed 175,000 people and took 12,500 statements. The previous description of the vehicle led them to believe that the Yorkshire Ripper could be a taxi driver.
This hunch would lead them further away from Peter Sutcliffe, and instead they focused on a man named Terry Hawkshaw who had a similar appearance to Peter.
Terry was placed under 24-hour surveillance. His home and car were searched, and at one point, he was held in police questioning for over 12 hours.
Meanwhile, Peter's doing fine, by the way, just in case you were wondering. And by now, he and Sonia had finished the purchase of their home, and Peter even bought himself a new car. So, as far as Sonia knew, life was pretty good.
Now, the night before this murder, this was Saturday, October 1st, 1977, Peter had spent the day working on his new car and decided to take it for a drive. At approximately 9:30 p.m., he came across Jean Bernadette Jordan and persuaded her to get in the vehicle with him.
Jean was a local sex worker who had two children, and like many of the others, she was doing what she had to do to keep her household afloat and support her family. She didn't think much of Peter and kind of thought of him as any other John.
Peter took her to a vacant lot and handed her a 5-pound bill. She placed it in a small pocket in her purse and got out of the car. She was then hit on the head with the hammer a total of 13 times before she succumbed to her injuries.
When he was done, Peter calmly drove home and waited for the headlines to reveal that there was another murder. 8 days went by without any news. Soon enough, Peter realized he had made a terrible mistake.
Was the mistake that he had taken numerous innocent lives? Of course not. He realized that the 5-pound bill he gave her was brand new and thought that it could possibly be traced to him. As Sonia went to bed that night, he left in an attempt to get the bill back.
So, how it used to work in those days is you would get your pay packet and it
Mhm.
would literally be a wad of cash.
Yep.
So, they would take the serial numbers on the bills and it would tell you exactly who those bills went to.
Yeah.
So that's why he was like, oh shit, if they find this 5 pound note, they could track it back to my pay packet.
Mhm.
So that's why he's freaking out. He did visit her body and was furious when he couldn't find the 5 pound note. He took his anger out on the body and stabbed Jean 18 more times. In an attempt to make identifying her body more difficult for police, he tried to cut off her head, but was unable to do so. And with that, he left.
Her body was finally discovered by a man named Bruce Jones.
And a fun side note about Bruce, he went on to become an actor and had a recurring role in Coronation Street with another TV show where he played a man who hired a sex worker. So it all comes back around for him.
Right? I
For
saw
Bruce.
that in when I was researching and it said, "Oh, he was an aspiring actor." And I was like, "I wonder if this guy's been in anything."
I mean, Coronation Street, it's pretty iconic.
It's a big get. He had a recurring role for I think 5, 6 years.
And the show is still, I think, ongoing. It's been going for like 60 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good for him.
Her purse was found the following day. In it, they found a brand new 5-pound bill. It was traced to the Shipley and Bingley bank branches. Eventually, investigators learned that it was printed for a series of bills that were sent to numerous companies, one of them being the one that Peter now worked for.
They interviewed 8,000 employees, one of whom was Peter himself, but they still did not feel that they had a suspect in front of them.
I watched an interview with a guy that he used to work with
Yes, I've seen the same one.
there, and
Yeah.
he's like, and we were all joking. We were calling Peter the Ripper, and he was just laughing.
Again, one of those like Ed Gein moments
Yeah.
where you're like, haha, so funny, Peter. Huh?
Yeah.
Huh? This close call with the police did nothing to dissuade Peter from acting out again. On December 14th, he found his next victim, 25-year-old Marilyn Moore. He introduced himself as Dave and offered her some money in exchange for her time. She got in his car.
As they arrived at their destination, she attempted to get out, but her door was locked. Peter came behind her to open the door and began hitting her on the head. Once again, he stopped when he heard a dog barking, leaving Marilyn behind. She would survive the brutal attempt on her life.
Investigators were taken to the area she last saw Peter and found tire marks that matched the scene of Irene Richardson's attack. Police believed that there was a chance that he would not attack again due to how many times he had come so close to being caught. They were wrong.
I don't understand this thought process.
Me either.
He's gonna stop. He's scared of us.
I mean, maybe they didn't quite know the pathology that we know now in the sense that they don't slow down. They pick up.
Oh,
if
yeah,
anything,
and
right?
that's exactly what he
Very
does.
much escalation. Boom, boom, boom. So to me, yeah, it's bizarre that they're like, well, he won't have another one for a bit. It's like, guys, your numbers are starting to get up there.
Oh, yeah.
And you haven't found anything, even though you've come hairs
Mhm.
within literally sitting face to face with this man. And you have no fucking clue.
Yeah. On January 21st, 1978, Peter murdered 21-year-old Yvonne Ann Pearson. He beat her over the head with his hammer and jumped on her chest multiple times. He then stuffed horsehair from a nearby discarded couch and stuffed it in her mouth.
His murders are all brutal to begin with, but it's clear that at this point he's definitely getting more violent. And not only that, his attacks are definitely increasing in frequency.
Only 10 days later, Peter killed again. Ellen Ritka, or Helen as she preferred to be called, along with her twin sister Rita, were both sex workers. When one of them went off with a client, the other would take down the plate number of the car. The two had a system where they would meet in a certain spot after they were done with their clients. This time, Helen didn't return.
On that night, Rita had just gotten into a vehicle with a client. Helen was waiting by herself when Peter approached her. She went with him and they drove off to a quiet area. She got into his back seat and he struck her over the head with his hammer.
As he was attacking her, Peter noticed that they were in full view of two taxi drivers. Realizing that they hadn't actually seen them yet, he dragged Helen out of the car by her hair and continued his brutality. During this, he dropped his hammer and went back to find it.
He returned to see that Helen, still alive, was making a desperate attempt to get away. Peter found a kitchen knife in his car and stabbed her several times.
Meanwhile, Rita had returned to their spot. She waited for Helen to return, but eventually went back to their home. Due to her line of work, she was apprehensive about the police and didn't report her sister as missing for several days.
Her body would be found on February 3rd by a police dog.
A month after this murder, police received the following letter.
Dear Sir, I am sorry that I cannot give my name for obvious reasons. I am the Ripper. I've been dubbed a maniac by the press, but not by you. You call me clever, and I am. You and your mates haven't a clue. That photo in the paper gave me fits, and that bit about killing myself? No chance. I've got things to do. My purpose to rid the streets of them sluts. My one regret is that young lassie MacDonald did not know, 'cause changed my routine that night. Up to number 8 now, you say. 7, but remember Preston 75? Get about, you know. You were right, I travel a bit. You probably look for me in Sunderland. Don't bother. I'm not daft. Just posted the letter there on one of my trips. Not a bad place compared with Chapeltown and Manningham and other places. Warn whores to keep off the streets because I feel it coming again. Sorry about the young lassie. Yours respectfully, Jack the Ripper. Might write again later. Not sure the last one really deserved it. Whore's getting younger each time. Old slut next time, I hope. Huddersfield, never again. Too small. Close call, last one. So he's basically, if this is indeed
Mm-hmm.
Peter, which I think as we find out, it's not.
Nope.
Um, so the Sunderland thing. So Sunderland is up north, and they have a pretty strong accent that's quite different from West
Yes.
Yorkshire. And we'll talk about it a bit later too, is that there's this very creepy phone call.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the person that called, who, as we also find, was not the fucking Ripper, had a Sunderland accent. Now, this, coupled with the letter and the mention of Sunderland, started them police in a completely wrong direction all over again.
At one point, they interview Peter again,
Yeah.
and the police officer who interviews him goes to his superior and says, I think this is our
Yeah.
guy. I
Yeah.
think this is him. And the superior says, wrong accent. It's not him.
Yeah. Well, they were wrong. Ugh.
The police were hopeful about this letter and made attempts to trace it. None of them were successful. Little did they know it wasn't even Peter Sutcliffe, who they were not even close to catching.
What a twist.
Ugh.
Unfortunately, Peter would claim even more lives before he was finally identified.
And that's where we'll pick back up next week for part 3 of the Yorkshire Ripper.
I knew it was going to be at least a 3-parter.
Yeah, and again, we talked about this with Fred and Rose West. With a lot of these people, it's literally like they killed this person, then they killed this
Yeah.
person, then this one, then this one. And it's just so much death and brutality. And the fact that I feel like every other month they're going on the wrong path when it comes to catching him. And they're sitting down in front of him multiple times and they're like, nope, you're fine.
And when we say, like, they had him, they were sitting, I'm saying they brought him in. The
Mhm.
police brought him in and interviewed him face to face.
Yeah.
Like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Not once or twice. Face to face.
It's insane.
And each time, because of these various things, he would just get away with it. And then not slow down, just continue, go, go, go.
And really, like we said, the brutality is amping up. He's not
Yes.
just hitting them over the head 3 or 4 times. He's now every single one, he's hitting them over the head. He's stabbing them. He is jumping on their chest, stuffing horsehair into their mouths, trying to cut their heads off. Like, he is really increasing in that brutality. And I'm sure at this point, he feels untouchable.
I sure would.
Yeah.
Nothing's happened, and the police have literally talked to you. All the things, he's worried about the 5-pound note on his pay stub or whatever, and they get this close.
Yeah. At the end of the day, at no point of this have they come closer to him.
No. Physically, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Mentally, not at all.
Definitely not.
Not even on their radar.
And we're going to continue all of that, and you're going to be even more frustrated, friends.
Yeah, because unfortunately, as you will probably know, when there's another episode, it just means the deaths continue.
Yep. Definitely true.
Very rarely do we have like a third part where we're not still talking about it, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Exactly. With all of that brutality, here's a reminder to listen to Extra Credit.
Yeah, we actually just did a what I would call a double bill. We recorded the regular show. Obviously, you're hearing our sultry voices talk about the Peter Sutcliffe. But we also recorded Extra Credit today as well. And it's our first time recording Extra Credit since I got back. So that's been
definitely.
good. We
A lot of
had
stuff.
a lot to talk about. In fact, so much to talk about that we ended up leaving some of it out. So yeah, definitely go have a listen to that.
Charlotte shares one of my favorite old-timey stories that I think I've heard in a long time. So
It's a very good one.
Yes.
About a young sociopath. So
yes. With that, we want to quickly thank everyone over on Patreon. That's
Yay.
patreon.com/thegrimcurriculum.
It is.
We have a free tier where you get early episode reveals. We also have a 1-week trial of the paid tier, so you can check all that stuff out too. There is a Discord, and there are video versions of the episodes along with a bunch of other extras. So make sure you check it out. Helps support the show. And as always, we want to thank the top tier on Patreon. That is the Grim VIPs.
A humongous and splendiferous thank you, as always, to the wonderful Mayhem Mudkip, Lisa, Nova, Kevinus Musicus, Brian, Bob, Paranoid Pop Rocks, Steven Centauri, Judy, and Atlantean Jedi.
And thank you all so much for listening. This has been
The Grim Curriculum. And a fun fact, I'm actually not sure if I've said this one before or not, so if you, dear listeners, have been listening for a long time, you can tell me. But a gargoyle is only a gargoyle if water passes through it. Otherwise, it's just a grotesque.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That is new.
Yeah, if it's just a creepy statue on the side of a cathedral, it's just a grotesque. A gargoyle has to have a spout for water.
Fascinating.
So there you go.
Bye.
Bye.